All right, so it came out that Sony Music is apparently forgiving artist debt. All right, and I'm looking at this from an Instagram post. I'm gonna just read it off. Uh, it is unlikely that other major labels adopt this policy. Keep in mind that Sony will continue to take their royalty split from future revenue off of these releases. This move simply forgives the artist debt from advances. Okay, and one more little part that's important. Sony announced that all artists who signed a deal with them before the year 2000, will start earning royalties, even if their advance isn't paid off yet. Huh? That's interesting, to say the least. You think this is real?
Yeah. So that's from James Landry. He's over at DeNovo. So shout out to them. Not bad guys. Have no beef with them. But yeah, so yeah. So I mean, why wouldn't it? This is not that big of a favor to people. It's prior to the year 2000. So what is this saying? This is going into record label contracts. Which is why we've had previous episodes of be aware of what you're signing.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, people have called these deals from record labels sharky, and record labels are screwing over artists and all this stuff. Not entirely.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look at it from the record label side of if this artist got an advance in the year 2000 and they still haven't paid it back in 2021, who got the worst end of that deal? The record label.
Yeah, for sure.
Did. So you do have to see things from both sides whenever you're entering into business deals. A lot of times artists just have an artist mindset and they don't know anything about contracts or business or anything. Yeah. And then somebody tells them this is unfair, and they just keep going with that. They go off of what they heard. Rather than looking at the facts of the situation.
Right.
So you also have to remember that it's called artist debt. You're indebted to something.
Right.
It sounds nice because a lot of people are going to hear that and, Sony's like forgiving this artist debt sort of thing. But as I stated before, this is 21 years ago.
Right.
So you're royalties and your shows and all that stuff should have been paid off. That's a terrible investment for 21 years to not get your money back.
Yeah, man.
I'm trying to think of a worse investment.
Yeah.
And there really isn't one.
Man. That's horrible.
Even like with that lull period of you have this huge advance because people are selling CDs. So they might have been operating under the model that this wasn't going to change.
Right.
And they gave a big advance because they thought that, they're just going to sell so many CDs and like this is going to continue to happen. And they didn't see that, the streaming was coming and people stealing the music off of like LimeWire and all that stuff back in the day was going to happen. So like, yeah, you have some sympathy for them because they probably did give a huge advance.
Yeah.
And, they got hit with something that they couldn't have foreseen. But you also want to factor in like the changes in the industry when you're signing a deal. Factor in you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I've seen acquisitions. We talked about Spotify on previous episodes. Spotify has given crazy valuations to companies that they've acquired. I think it was Gimlet Media, which was their podcasting. So going heavily after podcast, and we talked about this on another episode. And they gave, I think it was like 300 some million for a podcasting company. And they're going under the assumption that podcasts are going to be huge on their platform. They could be right. That podcasting is going to be huge on their platform. But you also have to factor in something, technology. Technology can happen. So that's why you don't give crazy evaluations or go into crazy amounts of debt.
Right.
Blockbuster went into crazy amounts of debt.
Right.
Because they went under this presumption that this is how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to keep borrowing this money, or we're just going to keep, giving out these huge advances like Sony did, and then you get caught with the bag, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds nice for people, but the end of the day, it's probably smarter on Sony's part to do this, just because like people were under, they know there's a large percentage of the population that wants their student loans forgiven.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so psychologically, people are going to tie that to forgiving debt. And so just the phrase of forgiving debt is what they're going to remember. And like, oh, Sony's like these good guys. Like they did this thing. I can go sign with them. That's what I kind of see it as.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know their intent, but that's what I kind of see it as. That's pretty, it's the writing's on the wall for me.
Yeah.
But not all that great a deal.
It's not. It's 21 years, man. Dear Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I don't see it as too huge. I don't know how much debt some people have left after 20 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I gather from it.
Yeah. Makes sense.